We're starting Nan Kuf Chaf Hey. We're holding in the Gemara where it says Zumayra Sheikshura. It's the end of a line towards the bottom of the page. It said in the Mishnah, a person wants to use a pitcher to draw water with it. So he's going to tie a piece of a branch of a vine to be able to draw the water. So it said that if it was tied to it, if it's tied to it, then you could use it on Shabbos. But if it's not tied to it, you can't use it on Shabbos. So the Gemara explains the Mishnah. One second, I'll explain. Kshura in. So it said in the Mishnah, only if this vine, this branch of the vine is connected to the pitcher, then you could use it. Then you could use this vine. Like shura, but if it's not connected to it, if you didn't tie it to the pitcher, you can't use it. So Rashi explains, even if it's not tied, sometimes these vines, they're twirly, right? And you can find a way how to sort of twirl it around the pitcher without making a knot. So there would be a way to use it without a kesher, without making that knot. So what do we see over here? This vine is muktzah. It's not a keli, it's muktzah. In order to change its status, that it should not be muktzah, you have to actually make a physical knot to change something. But if you didn't, just designating it by your mind and then twirling it around the pitcher would not work. So, says the Gemara, the fact that we require a physical knot, a physical change, this is not like Rab Shimon Gamliel. We had this before. You have branches from a palm tree that are hard, and a person cut them for firewood. But then the person changes his mind, yeshiva, he's going to use them to sit on them. So the question is, if he changes his mind, is that enough that it should now not be muktzah? Rav Shimon Gamliel ain't tzarich liksha. You don't have to do something physical to the branches to change its status to now become something that's going to be used to sit on. The fact that he keeps that in mind, that he wants to be used for this, is enough. So we see that according to Rav Shimon Gamliel, you don't need a physical change in the object that it should not be muktzah. Over here, the Mishnah, however, is saying that you have to physically tie the vine on the pitcher in order for it not to be muktzah. Answers the Gemara, we could say that the Mishnah here does follow the opinion of Rav Shimon Gamliel. Here it's different. When we're talking about using this vine for the pitcher, the vine is still connected to the vineyard. Right? So he's going to use it while it's connected. He's able to use it. He's not going to pull it too far, obviously, but he's still able to use it while it's connected to the vineyard. In a case where the vine is still connected to the vineyard, even Rav Shimon Gamliel agrees that it's not enough just to have a mind to use this, that it shouldn't be muktzah. You're going to have to do something physical, make a knot, in order for it to be part of the pitcher to be able to be used on Shabbos. So the Gemara asks, Ihachi, if it's still connected to the vineyard, he's using something which is connected to the ground. There's a gzeira of Chazal, you're not allowed to use anything connected to the ground because a person might come to pull off a branch of a tree. So how could he use this branch of the vineyard? Answers the Gemara, what we're talking about is that part of the vineyard that's right near the ground below 3 tvachim. The halacha regarding a tree is anything above 3 tvachim is considered to be something that's growing from the ground, and you're not allowed to touch it, you're not allowed to lean on it, because you might come to pull it off the ground. But if it's below 3 tvachim, it's considered to be like part of the ground itself. You can walk on the ground, right? So anything below 3 tvachim is considered to be like part of the ground itself, and there's no gzeira of Chazal on that. And that's what we're talking about over here regarding this vine. It's connected, and it's below 3 tvachim. Rav Ashi says it's not necessary to make such a kimta to create this case over here in the Mishnah so that it should fit with Rav Shimon Gamliel. This case is different. Afilu teime betlusha. We're talking about a branch from a vine that's disconnected. But over here, Rav Shimon Gamliel will agree that there's another gzeira. Gzeira shema yiktam. Regarding a vine, the fact that you designated it in your mind to be used is not enough. You have to physically tie it. If you're not going to physically tie it before Shabbos, there's a gzeira of Chazal that when a person is going to come to tie this branch of the vine to the pitcher, it's a soft branch and you're able to easily cut it, and the person is going to cut it to size that he needs for this pitcher, and then you'll be over on the malacha of makeh bepatish, as Rashi here says. And therefore, over here, in this case, Rav Shimon Gamliel is maida that there was a gzeira. The next case we learned in the Mishnah.
I like the answer. From Tolish.
No, it's already upgidis. So according to Rav Ashi, it's already tlusha. Pekak hachaloin cholo. So next thing it said in the Mishnah is a window shutter. Are you allowed to place a window shutter on the window on Shabbos? So Rabbi Eliezer says, as there's two conditions for this. It has to be kosher v'tola. It has to be kosher v'tola. It has to be connected to the house, and it also has to be suspended. Okay, Mashenke the Chachamim say it doesn't make a difference. Even if it's not connected, it's not suspended, as we'll see soon in the Gemara, the Chachamim hold you're allowed to connect it to the house. Now the issue over here, and as we'll see here in the Gemara, is not about muktzah. The issue over here is about baina. Whether when you put on window shutters, are you building something? So the Gemara explains. Everybody agrees. Both Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim will agree. She'ein oisin oil arai betchila b'yomtiv. You're not allowed to make a temporary tent on Yomtiv. Ve'ein tzarech loima b'Shabbos. Needless to say, on Shabbos. So if somebody is spreading some kind of a sheet or cloth on top of poles, for example, to create a roof, even if it's just a temporary roof, you're not allowed to make a temporary roof on Shabbos and Yomtiv. Okay? A roof, if you create a roof that has the dimensions and the size, it's not allowed, right? It's definitely a problem. It has to have the right size, though. Even temporarily, it's not allowed to be done on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Lo nechlaku. Where are they arguing? Elo lo haisif. If you already placed the roof, whatever it is you're using, a sheet that you're putting, spreading out, you already placed it there, but it's not fully spread out. It's there and you want to add to it. Rabbi Eliezer says, Ein meisifim b'yamtiv, even if it's already there and it's spread out, you're not allowed to add to the roof that you made on Yom Tov. Ein tzarech loima b'Shabbos, needless to say in Shabbos, which is more stringent. V'chachamim oimrim, and the Chachamim say, meisifim b'Shabbos, ve'ein tzarech loima b'Yom Tov. You could add on Shabbos, and needless to say on Yom Tov. Once you spread out that sheet partially, even though the sheet wasn't fully extended, you're allowed to add and extend it fully. Okay, so that's what the Gemara, the words that it says in the Gemara is talking about, spreading out a sheet as a roof, as a temporary roof. If it's not spread out at all, you're not allowed to place it there on Shabbos and Yom Tov. But if it's there, it's just you want to add to it, you want to spread it out fully, that is allowed according to Rabbi Eliezer and not allowed according to, again, it's allowed according to the Chachamim and it's not allowed according to Rabbi Eliezer. Now, how does this apply to the shutter of the windows in the Mishnah? So there's two pshatim in this. According to the pshat that we have in our Rashi here, in the window, we're talking about a window in a wall. In a wall, actually, according to Rashi, you're allowed to put up a temporary wall on Shabbos. You could create a temporary curtain on Shabbos. It's not a problem. The only problem of creating a temporary oihel is with a roof, not with a wall. But over here, though, we're talking about a permanent wall. We're not talking about a temporary wall. Our Mishnah is talking about a wall of a house, which is a permanent wall. The question is, the argument of Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim regarding adding something to the oil in the roof, which is a temporary roof, applies also when you get to a permanent wall, where you have the wall and you have the windows and then you have the shutters, which is just adding a little bit to the wall, whether you're allowed to add to the wall on Shabbos or not. Rabbi Eliezer holds only if it's already affixed to the house, it's already part of the house, so it's part of this binyan, so you're not adding it, it's affixed already from before, you're allowed to add this. Chachamim say that no, even if it's not affixed, you're just adding something to this wall over here, it would be allowed on Shabbos. That's the pshat that we have in our Rashi. The pshat that it says in the Marshal, and the pshat that Alter Rebbe brings in Shulchan Aruch is different. Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch brings the pshat that we're not talking, when the Mishnah is talking about windows, it's not talking about windows in a wall, it's talking about a skylight, a skylight in the roof. So the Gemara here is talking about making the oil and a temporary roof. So we're talking over here the same thing. The Mishnah as well was talking about a skylight on the roof, which could also be called a chalain. And the question is regarding a person that wants to cover that opening that there is in a temporary roof. Could he cover that temporary opening or not? That's what the Mishnah is talking about, and that's the machlokes of Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer, whether you can add to the opening that there is in a roof on Shabbos. Okay, those are the two pshatim here. Now the Gemara is going to continue to clarify and explain the shita of the Chachamim, right? Rabbi Eliezer is very clear in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer says in order to be allowed to add this shutter or this covering to this window or the skylight, there's two conditions. It has to be kosher v'toli. Has to be connected and has to be suspended from the ground, that it's already part of the building. Chachamim say that benkach or benkach paikikin. Now, what is exactly the meaning of benkach or benkach? So the Gemara is going to bring two opinions about this. Either way, you can shutter the windows. My benkach or benkach. What's the meaning of this expression of benkach or benkach? Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Kahana. That the pshat is bein kosher, bein she'ena kosher. Whether it's tied to the house, whether it's not tied to the house, even if it's not tied at all. In other words, not only if it's not suspended off the ground, but even if it's not tied at all, you could use these shutters for the windows on Shabbos. As long as the person mentally prepared it, he designated it and he put it there, he had the machshava to use it, that's enough. Before Shabbos, that's enough. It does not have to be connected to the house in any way. Not kosher and not totally. So the machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chacham, according to this pshat, is from one extreme to another. Rabbi Eliezer requires two conditions, kosher and totally. Chachamim require nothing. It's just that you just have to designate it with your mind that it's there before Shabbos. Oh, Malay Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah comments on this and says, how do you know the machlokes goes to such a far extreme? V'lei memar. Why doesn't the master say bein tolui, bein she'ena tolui? That what the Chachamim meant to say is whether it's suspended off the ground, whether it's not suspended off the ground, it could be used on Shabbos. But v'hu shekosher, the Chachamim will agree that it has to be attached to the house. It's not enough if it's not attached at all. You can't just place it down there and have in mind to use it. At least one condition the Chachamim agreed to, that it has to be attached to the house. Okay, so it's not going to be such a far machlokes. Everybody agrees it has to be attached to the house. The argument is only if it has to be suspended off the ground or not. And he brings a source for this pshat. The same machlokes we have over here regarding these window shutters. There's a similar machlokes in Masechta Erevin regarding a bolt that's used to lock a door. Back then, the way they locked the door is there was a bolt attached to the door. It could be attached to the door, and they would stick it into the ground to lock the door, that you shouldn't be able to open it. So what's the story with this bolt? Are you allowed to do this? Are you allowed to put it into the ground on Shabbos or not? According to Rashi's pshat, this entire Gemara here, just like before, is talking about the malacha of baina. When would it be allowed and it would not be an issue of baina? And when will it be an issue of baina? So the Tanan, we learned a Mishnah in Erevin, Nager hanigrar, a bolt that's dragging on the floor. So meaning it's connected to the door, but it's not suspended off the ground. It's dragging on the ground. Noyalim by b'mikdash, you're allowed to use this bolt in the Beis HaMikdash to lock a door, and the reason is v'avaloi b'Medina, but not in any other places outside the Beis HaMikdash. What's the difference between Mikdash and Medina? In the Beis HaMikdash, the Gezeiris de Rabbanon, Shvus de Rabbanon do not apply. Only things that are Asam and Atayra apply. In Medina, there's additional Gezeiris de Rabbanon. So what the Tanakama here is saying is, when it's connected, but it's still dragging on the ground, it's going to be mutter min atayra. There is no baina min atayra, but mid rabbanan there still is a gzeira and it can't be used by Medina. Veha munach. But if it's lying there, even if you designated it there, you put it there, you want it to be used for it, then kan v'kan aser, whether in the Beis HaMikdash, whether by Medina, it's going to be aser min atayra because of the malacha of baina, that you're taking a bolt that's just lying there and then you're connecting it into the ground and you're putting it in the ground to lock the door. That's baina min atayra. So then it's going to be aser everywhere. That's the Tanakama Shitta. Rabbi Yehuda is more lenient. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, hamunach b'mikdash. If it's lying on the ground, you designated it there to lie there, to be used for the door, so then min atayra there's no problem. It's not baina. In the Beis HaMikdash, there'll be a gzeira midrabanan that it's not connected to the door, so it'll be asam midrabanan. Therefore, in the Beis HaMikdash, you'll be allowed to use it, because in Beis HaMikdash there's no gzeiris midrabanan. V'hanigrar, if it's connected to the door, it's already tied, even though it's dragging on the floor. B'Medina, then there's no gzeira midrabanan at all. You can use it in the Medina as well. One more clarification of it. The Gemara brings another braisa that clarifies, spells out this machlekes a bit better. The Tanya, we learned in a braisa, Eizehu nager hanigrar. When we talk over here about this bolt that's dragging on the floor, Shenoyelim by b'mikdash, you're allowed to use it to lock the door in the Beis HaMikdash, Avaloi b'Medina, but not in the Medina. Kol shekashur v'talui v'roishe megiel la'aretz. It's a bolt that's connected to the door, but the cord of this bolt is long enough that it lies on the ground. That's the Tanna Kama's opinion. Rabbi Yehuda says, Zeh af b'medina muter. If it's connected to the door, so that's completely allowed, even b'medina. The very fact that it's connected is good enough, and there's no isser whatsoever. Elo eizeo sheb'medina aser, which case will be aser even outside the Beis HaMikdash, anywhere else. Kol she'eina loy kosher v'loy toloi. Only if it's not connected and it's not hanging, it's not suspended off the ground. V'shoimtoi umanicha b'keren zavis. When you pull out this bolt from the hole to lock the door, where do you put it? You just put it in a corner. You put it down and it's not connected at all, then it's going to be a problem. Then it's going to be asam midrabanan. So what do we see over here from this entire thing? What's the machlokes here between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanna Kama? There's really two machlokes over here. One machlokes is benegeh to the Isser min HaTorah, right? The Tanna Kama says that the Isser min HaTorah is when it's lying on the ground. Even if you designated this bolt for the door, but if it's lying on the ground and then you want to bolt it, it's asam min HaTorah, it's beinah min HaTorah. Rabbi Yehuda says as long as you designated it for the door, there's no Isser min HaTorah anymore. That's one machlokes. The second machlokes is benegeh to the Isser midrabanan. The Tanna Kama says, when is there an Isser midrabanan? If it's connected and it's suspended and it's lying on the ground, there's an Isser midrabanan. The very fact that it's lying on the ground and it's not suspended in the ear, it's not so much part of the door, and there's the gzeira midrabanan that you're not allowed to use this. And Rabbi Yehuda says, in such a case, if it's already connected, if it's even if it's not suspended off the ground, there's no gzeira midrabanan at all. Okay, that's the machlokes over here. The bottom line is, what we see over here is, lukula alma, in order to be allowed to use this bolt, it has to at least be connected. If it's not connected, then there's a gzeira midrabanan. True min HaTorah does not have to be connected, but midrabanan, there's a gzeira that it has to at least be connected. Okay, so the Gemara...
Attached to the door.
Correct. Connected, attached to the door.
What's because?
They're geyser, Chachama were geyser, that as long as it's lying on the ground, then a person's going to come to think that you can take just any brick or anything and build into a building and attach. It's a gzeira mitzad baina. If they allow you to take anything so at least has to be connected.
In the old houses.
Huh?
In the old houses.
Yeah.
Close the door is like a long metal.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about over here. We're talking about a bolt.
It's not connected that usually.
Okay, so no, we don't paskin like any of this. Not like neither of these opinions. We'll see soon. There's another opinion. We don't paskin like any of this. Let's see. Now Rabbi Yeshua bar Abba, this is all continuing the pshat that Rabbi Yirmiyah is explaining. Well, we'll bring it back to our Mishnah in a second. So Rabbi Yeshua bar Abba, in the name of Ula says, here it is. Man Tana Naga Hanigrar. Who is the Tana over here? Of the Naga Hanigrar, Rabbi Eliezer. This is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. In other words, the Tanna Kama that says that in order for a bolt in a door to be allowed to use anywhere, not in the Beis HaMikdash, Beis HaMikdash is a different story, but anywhere, in order for a bolt to be allowed to be used, there are two conditions. What has to be done? It has to be kosher and tolui. The bolt has to be connected to the door and suspended off the ground. Then you can use the bolt for the door. That's the same opinion as Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah. The window shutters in our Mishnah, only if the window shutters is connected to the house and it's suspended off the ground, then the shutters could be used for the window. Same thing over here. The bolt could only be used if it's connected to the door and suspended off the ground. Okay, so now if that's the pshat, shouldn't we then assume that the Chachamim in our Mishnah that say benkach or benkach paikakim boy is Rabbi Yehuda? They're following Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. What was Rabbi Yehuda's opinion? It doesn't have to be suspended off the ground, but it at least midrabanan has to be connected to the door in order for it to be used. So this is Rabbi Yirmiyah's question. Why did Rav Abba say in the name of Rav Kahana that according to the Chachamim, even if it's not connected and it's not even suspended, it's not for sure not suspended off the ground, it could be used just by designating it mentally and it's lying there for this purpose, it could be used. Over here, we see that Rabbi Yehuda, that l'chayra would be the opinion of the Chachamim, hold that it at least has to be connected to the door for the bolt to be used. The same thing over here, the shutter should have to be connected to the house to be used. It shouldn't be allowed if it's just lying there. Amalei, so Rab Abba answered, Ano the Omri Kahaitana. There's actually a third opinion there. There is another opinion, and this is the opinion that we paskin like, that you could use a bolt, you could use a shutter. Well, actually, when I get to the shutter, we'll see in a minute. But when I get to the bolt, you could use it even if it's not connected, it's not suspended, it's just lying there on the ground, and you designated it to be used for the window or for the door. The Tanya we learned again. So Amalei, no the Amri Kahait Tana. I say that the Chachamim here follows a third opinion. Whose opinion is that? The Tanya we learned in a Braise, Konem, a rod for the door. So when they locked the doors, till now we're talking about the Nagar. A Nagar was a bolt that they put into the ground to stop the door, to lock the door. But then there was also a bolt that they put into the wall. There was a hole in the wall, and they bolted it into the wall in order to lock the door. Same thing, just one is in the ground, one is in the wall. So now this rod, the Balabayas prepared it to open and close and lock the door with this. If it's connected to the door and it's suspended from the ground, B'Pesach to the door, Pesach v'noel bay is allowed to use it. If it's not both kosher and tolui, so then it can't be used for the door. Rab Shimon Gamliel, so here comes the opinion that's very lenient. Rab Shimon Gamliel says, Mesukin, as long as the person designated it for this purpose, Afapi she'ena kosher. So he clearly says, even if it's not connected at all, even if it's lying there on the ground, but you designated this rod for this purpose, you're allowed to use it on Shabbos. So therefore, Rab Abba holds that the Chachamim is the opinion of Rab Shimon Gamliel, that says that there's no conditions necessary, it doesn't have to be connected, doesn't have to be suspended off the ground. Just by the fact that you designated it, that's enough that it should be able to be used. And we paskin like this opinion, as the Gemara says right now. Amar Rav Yehuda bar Shilit, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yechanan, Halacha k'Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. We paskin like Rab Shimon ben Gamliel to use a bolt, to use a rod in the door, to lock the door. It does not have to be suspended, it does not have to be connected. As long as you designated it, it could be used. Frag the Gemara, now is this taka true? Do we paskin like Rab Shimon Gamliel? Umi Amar Rab Yechanan Hachi? Did Rab Yechanan say this? Basically what we see, we had this before a few times, and we had this a long time ago also on Daf Nun. Rab Shimon Gamliel is telling us that anytime you have an item that's muktzah, because it's not a keli at all, even like a rock or anything, whatever it is, as long as you mentally designated it for use, it's not muktzah anymore. That's the basis of Rab Shimon Gamliel's opinion, and that's what Rab Yechanan here is paskening. So now the question is, did Rab Yechanan really say this? But it says in the Mishnah, this is the next Mishnah that we're going to learn right over here in the Amud Beis, Kol Kisuye Kelim, covers for Kelim, Sheyeshlem Beis Achize, if they have a handle, Nitalim B'Shabbos. You're allowed to move it on Shabbos. Then it won't be muktzah. So he said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, it's only if these covers can be used as a keli. Now, what exactly the pshat in this meaning is? So we'll see in the Hemshech of the Gemara soon. According to Rashi's pshat, what this means is the cover has to have another use besides the fact that it's being used as a cover for a keli. It has to be something that's useful for an additional use besides being a cover. Now, why that is the case, we're going to see in the Hemshech of the Gemara. But either way, the point is that what Rabbi Yechanan is saying is that this cover has to have a use as a keli. Then it's not going to be muktzah. So the question is, Rabbi Yechanan is saying now that this cover has to have actual use for a keli, as a beis achiza, and it has to be an actual keli in order for it not to be muktzah. According to Rab Shimon Gamliel, you could have just a brick, a stone, a rod, whatever it is. You designate it mentally in your mind for it to be used for the door, even if it's not a keli, but you designate it for the use, it's not muktzah anymore. Here, Rabbi Yechanan is saying, it's not enough that you designated it in your mind. It has to actually be useful for something as a keli. If you can argue and say regarding the rod that's used in the door, maybe this rod could also be used as a keli. It's not just your designation in your mind. So Rashi explains, we once had before regarding the olives, that they would use a rod in the olives to check the olives. So maybe this rod could also be used with olives. It could be used for something as a keli. We're not talking about a rod that's not a keli at all. So the Gemara says that's not true according to Rab Shimon Gamliel, that the reason why this rod could be used for the door is not because it's a keli. Umi by Rab Shimon Gamliel taitis keli olav. Does Rab Shimon Gamliel require that it should be a keli in order for it not to be muktzah? Vatani, we learned in the Braisa that we already learned just before, the branches of a palm tree that a person cut for firewood. And then he changed his mind, he wants to use it to sit on them. Tzarech lekasher, the Tanna Kama says you have to do something physical to make it into a chair. Rab Shimon Gamliel says no, it's not necessary. Ein tzarech lekasher. You have these branches that are firewood. It's not a keli at all, but in your mind you designated it for sitting. It's going to be allowed to be used on Shabbos. So we see according to Rab Shimon Gamliel, there doesn't have to be any taitas keli olav. It's my designation in my mind that's enough to make it not muktzah. So the same thing should apply to the rod. So how did Rabbi Yechanan on one hand paskins like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? On the other hand, Rabbi Yechanan says regarding the cover of a keli that it's not muktzah only if it's a keli, if it can be used as a keli. So the Gemara answers, we're going to have to say Rabbi Yechanan svira lekevasei b'choda. Regarding one aspect, Rabbi Yechanan does hold like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel that it's enough to designate something with your mind. But on the other hand, he holds that it's only regarding something that also has a use as a keli. Your designation by mind will only be relevant and work regarding something that has use as a keli. If it has no use as a keli, like a rock, like a branch of a tree, like stam a rod, if it has no use as a keli, designation by your mind will not work. So in that sense, he argues on Rab Shimon Gamliel. Darish Rav Yitzchak Nafcha, not Rav Yitzchak.
Keli, what do you need designation in your mind for?
Because if it's if the person did not designate it for that, even though it could be used as a keli, but if he didn't designate it for that, so then we don't treat it as a keli. Once he designates it and it's roy to be used as a keli, so then I say that his designation by mind helps. Darish Rabbi Yitzchak Nafche Darshan then said, Apischa de Reish Galusa, he was standing at the doorway of the Reish Galusa. Halacha Rabbi Eliezer. We paskin like Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah. Now we're going back to the shutters of the window. So we paskin like Rabbi Eliezer that was very machmer. That over there the issue is when you get to Baina, that he was very machmer, that has to be kosher v'tali, has to be tied to the house and suspended. Only then could you use it. So, lamadnu. Must of Rav Amram. So Rav Amram asked on this psaktin, like Rabbi Eliezer. Lamadnu. This is the very last Mishnah of Masechta Shabbos. Over there it says, lamadnu, from the story over there that the Mishnah brings, we learn out shepoikekin umaydedin v'kaishrin b'Shabbos. You can shutter the windows, you can measure on Shabbos, and you can tie on Shabbos. And there's a certain case, as we'll learn there in the Mishnah, Mitzvah Shem. So what do you see? It says clearly poikekin. You can shutter the windows. It doesn't say anything about kosher v'toli there. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye asks over here to the Rav Amram, "My daitech, why are you bringing that Mishnah as a question? Mishom de ketani stama nager again. My daitech mishom de ketani stama nager hanigra." The reason why you want to paskin, so he was saying this to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. You want to paskin like Rabbi Eliezer because there's another Mishnah in Masechta Erevin that it says the case of Nagar Nigra, right? Like Rabbi Eliezer, remember what we just learned over here. The Gemara explained that the Mishnah of Nagar Nigra, the Mishnah of the bolt of the door, that it said over there that it has to be kosher v'talui, that over there was the Chachamim. The Stam Mishnah said that the bolt has to be connected to the door and has to be suspended off the ground in order for it to be allowed. There didn't say a name. That's a Stam Mishnah. So you want to paskin like Rabbi Eliezer because it's a Stam Mishnah. So again, let me read this again over here. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye said to Rav Amram, "My daitech, why are you bringing the Mishnah of Paikikin, Maididin, and Kaishin? Mishom the Ktani Stame, because that's a Stam Mishnah. Nagara Nigra Nami Stamihi. The Mishnah of Nagara Nigra, which shows the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, also it says that as a Stam. So Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, there's also a reason to paskin like it, because over there in the Mishnah in Erevin, that's brought as a Stam opinion. This is always the klal. Whenever you have a Stam Mishnah without a name, that's a reason to paskin like a Stam Mishnah. So you have a Stam Mishnah that says like Rabbi Eliezer in Masechta Erevin, and then you have a Stam Mishnah at the end of Masechta Shabbos that says that it's allowed, not like Rabbi Eliezer. So why is one better than the other? So the Gemara says, no, there's an advantage to the Mishnah in the end of Masechta Shabbos. And what is that? When you have a Stam Mishnah that's bringing an incident that happened, the way the Chachamim acted, and based on that the Mishnah is saying a halacha, an action, a Maisa is much more powerful. And that's why Rav Amram's question was a good question, that you have to paskin not like Rebbe Eliezer, the Mishnah that says Poikekin b'Shabbos, because that's not only a Stam Mishnah, it's a Maisa Rav.
So we paskin Rav Amram.
Yeah, so we paskin like that Mishnah of Poikekin Maidin v'Kaishim b'Shabbos. Okay. Zok the Mishnah, now we come back to this case that we already mentioned a few times before about covers of kalim. Kisui ha-kalim, or kol kisui ha-kalim, you have covers of a pot or whatever it is. Sheyesh lem beis achiza, if it has a handle, nitolim b'Shabbos. Then you're allowed to move it on Shabbos. Omer Rav Yosi explains, Bamed dvarim amurim b'kisui karkois. If this is a handle, if this is a cover that's not covering pots, it's a cover that's covering a pit, or like what you have today, a manhole. So if you have a cover to a manhole, so then you're only allowed to move that on Shabbos if it has a handle. Okay, so Rashi explains, the issue we're discussing over here is baina. Again, the issue is baina, as Rashi says. Have a kabaina. If you're covering something in the ground and it does not have a handle, so because it doesn't have a handle, it looks like it's being covered permanently. If it has a handle, so it's clear that it's made to place down and to remove, place down, that's why it has a handle. So Rabbi Yosi says the whole requirement of a handle is regarding a cover into the ground. Avo bekisi ha-kalim, a cover to a pot, you don't need a handle for that. Benkach or benkach, nitolim b'Shabbos. There's no issue of baina here, and there's no issue of muktzah either. It could be used for a pot, and it's a regular keli, and it's not muktzah.
Yeah, because
okay?
You're going to take the food out of the pot.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not muktzah. Even if it doesn't have a handle, it's fine. Rav Yehuda bar Shila, Rav Asi, Rav Yechanan. This is the statement we had before, but now we're going to explain this. V'hu sheyesh teiras keli aleya. When it says over here that you can use this cover when it has a handle, when could you use it? If it has a teiras keli aleya, meaning that this cover could be used for something else. That's Rashi's pshat. It can't only be used. The use of this is not only as a cover for a pot, but it could be used for something else. I guess you can turn it over and you can use it as a keli. It can be used for something else. Then,
multi-purpose.
as another use. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain it. What's the pshat? Why does it have to have a second use? If it's just a cover for a pot, why isn't that good enough that it shouldn't be muktzah? If it could be used as a cover for a pot, why does it have to have a teiras keli alein, an additional use? So therefore the Gemara explains as follows. The kula alma kisi karkois, everybody would agree if we're talking about a cover to a pit or to a manhole in the ground, im yeshlem beis achize in, if it has a handle, then it's allowed to be used to cover it, iloi loi. If it does not have a handle, then it can't be moved. Because like Rashi said, it looks like baina. You're covering the ground permanently. On the other hand, everybody will agree, kisuya kalim, if this is a cover that's designated for pots, even if it does not have a handle, so there's no issue of using it at all whatsoever. So, and this statement of Rabbi Yechanan that it has to have a multi-purpose and additional use would not apply. If it's a cover for a pot, why should it not be allowed to be moved? Why would it be muktzah? Legabi, what did Rabbi Yechanan say this? What is our Mishnah talking about? Ki pligi, the Mishnah is talking about bekalim de chabrinu ba'ara. When you have a pot that was attached to the ground. Okay? For whatever reason, I mean, it sounds very similar to what we learned before about the ovens, the way they attach the ovens to the ground. The Gemara is going to bring soon that pshat. But a keli that was attached to the ground, and that's what you're covering. Okay, Mar Savar, one opinion is Gazrinan, there's a Gzeira, because it's similar to covering a manhole, this keli is also connected to the ground. So Chachamim made a Gzeira that you shouldn't come to cover a manhole if it doesn't have a handle. Or Mar Savar Loi Gazrinan. And Rabbi Yosi says that we did not make this Gzeira. The Gzeira, what's not allowed to be covered is only a manhole, but a keli that's connected to the ground, the Chachamim did not make a Gzeira. The Shnachrin, another pshat, another version of this same pshat, but a little bit of a different version that they said over here is Ki pligi b'kisi tanor. The argument over here regarding a cover, whether it has to have a handle or not, is regarding an oven. Okay, so as we had before, what's the story with an oven? An oven is connected to the ground. Sometimes an oven is actually inserted into a pit in the ground. So the first opinion is that it's compared to the cover of the ground itself, which cannot be covered with a cover that does not have a handle, because it's a gzeira, it's similar. Or no, we compare it to the cover of kalim, and therefore there's no gzeira. Chazal did not make a gzeira, because this is a keli and this is the ground, it's two separate things. Hadran Allah kol hakelim. Okay, I explained over here this whole Gemara, Sayin Hamid Beis, Sayin Hamid Aleph, according to Rashi. I'm just telling you, Taisus over here learns the Gemara and Hamid Aleph completely differently, and even over here also Hamid Beis Taisus learns the Gemara completely differently. Just to mention quickly one short vart, Rashi here is explaining this entire Gemara about the window shutters to be talking about the issue of baina. Same thing with the bolt in the door. It's an issue of baina. When you bolt the door, you place it into the ground, it's baina. Taisus disagrees. Taisus says there's no baina. It's a temporary thing. The bolt goes in and goes out. That's not baina. Taisus explains the entire sugi here to be talking about muktzah. And to what extent is it or is it not muktzah? If you designated it, if you hung it, if it's suspended, it's all a question of how much do you have to do in order for it not to be muktzah or not. But Rashi's opinion is it's not talking about muktzah, it's talking about baina. The truth is, even according to Taisus, the Mishnah regarding the shutter of the window is definitely talking about the issue of baina as well, because the Gemara clearly said over here that it's talking about baina at the bottom of Kuf Chafei Amid Beis. But Taisva says when you shutter a window, there are two issues. There's the issue of baina, and there's also the issue of muktzah. And that's what the Gemara is talking about over here. Mashenki and Rashi's Machadish that no, bolting a door, even though the bolt is taken in and out, that's an issue of baina. That's the basic machlokes here between Rashi and Taisus on that. Over here as well, when we talk about the covers that the Gemara here says, you're covering a pot that's connected to the ground. So Rabbi Yechanan says it has to have another use. In order for this cover to be allowed to be used, it has to have another use besides being a cover. It's not a regular cover for a pot, it's a cover for the ground. It's a cover for a pot that's in the ground. So therefore it has to have another use in order for it not to be muktzah. Rashi holds even if it's a regular kind of cover that's designated as a cover for a pot. Taisvus Rabbeinu Tam says no. If it's a regular cover, there's no such a thing. It has to have a multi-purpose in order for it not to be muktzah. We're talking about a person that takes a board to cover a pot, to cover something. So then the board will not be considered to be a cover unless it has another use. But stam, a real cover, does not have to have a second use. Okay, that's Pekitzer what's going on over it. There's a lot in the Rishonim here on this Gemara. Okay, let's begin just the Mishnah on the next Pedic. Zok the Mishnah. Mefanen, a person can clear an area. Okay, so now before I learn the Mishnah inside, there's an issue on Shabbos of doing things that are uvdin d'chayil. When you do something which is mundane activity. One of the definitions of mundane activity is when a person does something which is an extra tircha, an extraneous work. A person has a room full of boxes, a storage room, and he has guests and he wants to clear out the room. So on Shabbos, there's a question, am I allowed to now do this extraneous activity and clear out this whole room for someone to be able to be there in this room? Zok to Mishnah, mefanen, you can clear out the place, the storage, afila arba v'chomish kupais, even up to 4 or 5 boxes. Shal teven, of hay, shal tvua, of wheat. But it's only if it's for the purpose of guest that arrived, or if it's a place that people want to come and learn over there. So for a mitzvah, you're allowed to clear it out. They will matter this tirche, this uvdin d'chayil, and it's only to the amount of 4 or 5 boxes. And Taisus over here says that you could have all kinds of sizes of boxes. There's a certain measurement and size of what these boxes are. Shloisha sa'in. Okay, but more than that, you're not allowed. More than that, you're not allowed to clear it out. And the guest that we're talking about, by the way, the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch brings this as well. What kind of guest are we talking about? We're not just talking about L'mashal, if you have Shabbos guests that are joining your Shabbos Suda. We're talking about real guests, that a poor person that comes from another city and he arrives right on Shabbos to your house and he has nowhere to sleep, he has nowhere to be. A real guest, the taka has nowhere to be, not someone that you invite into your house for a Suda. So for that mitzvah, you're allowed to do this tircha on Shabbos. Aval loy esa oitzer, you're not allowed to move things in a storage. Mipnei aval loy esa oitzer, but you're not allowed to clear out the entire storage. The Gemara will explain this line of the Mishnah what it means. Now the Mishnah says weiter, and here the Hemshech of the Mishnah goes back to the concept of muktzah. Mefanen, Trume, Tahira, you're allowed to clear out Trume, that's Tahir, could be used by the Kayin to eat, or the Kayin could even use it to feed to his animals. That's allowed to be moved on Shabbos. It's right to be used, and it's not muktzah. Demai is something that there's a suffix if the meiser was taken from it or not. It's also allowed to be moved on Shabbos. Meiser Rishon is the meiser that the Levi receives. After the Levi receives this, he's not allowed to eat from it until he takes another tenth and gives it to the Kayin. That's the Trumas meiser. Meiser Sheni v'hektish niftu. Meiser Sheni and hektish, once it was redeemed, and you're allowed to eat it. Or v'haturmes hayavesh, or you have beans that are dry, that are edible. Mipnei shuhu meichel izim, who's it edible for? It could be served to goats. So all of these things are usable. They're edible. They could be used, and therefore they're not muktzah, and you could move them on Shabbos. Now, why the Mishnah says so many examples and cases of things that could be moved on Shabbos, the Gemara will explain. Aval, the following things you're not allowed to move on Shabbos. Loyas a tevel where meisters were not taken from it, you're not allowed to eat it on Shabbos, so it's muktzah. V'loyas meiser rishon shaloinet la trumasai, meiser rishon that the Levi received and he did not take the truma necessary, so he's not allowed to eat it. V'loyas meiser sheni v'hektish shaloinevtu, meiser sheni and hektish that were not redeemed, you're not allowed to eat from it. It also is not allowed to be moved. V'loyas haluf, not luf was also a kind of beans. V'loyas achardel, and not the mustard beans. Also before it's grinded, it also it's not eaten, so therefore all these things are muktzah. Rab Shimon Gamliel matir beluf. Rab Shimon Gamliel says that luf is something that could be eaten. B'pnei shehu meichel ervin. It is food for ravens, and if a person has ravens to feed, he will be able to use it. Chavile kash, bundles of straw. Chavile eitzim, bundles of twigs. Chavile zrodin, also bundles of tender reeds. Imiskinan l'meichel beheme. If you designated it before Shabbos for animal feed, metaltal and you're allowed to move them on Shabbos. V'im lav, but if not, it's muktzah, has no purpose. And metaltal and you're not allowed to move it on Shabbos.